What you boyin'? What are you boyin'? Hopefully it's Resident Evil Village because this game is dirt cheap and it's still amazing in 2025. Before I talk about what I found fascinating in this amazing game, I would just like to give a few disclaimers. So this game won't have any spoilers because I still think people need to actually play this. I played it late because it ended up somehow in my backlog because there's so many games in existence. But I still feel like there are many that didn't experience this. My best friend and my brother. Anyway, so I would like to just go through and just give a brief history lesson about me and my relationship with Resident Evil, with the Resident Evil series. I am from the old school, so I played Resident Evil back in 1996 when it first came out on the PlayStation. You remember the one with the actual FMV, the actual recorded film in the actual game? That Resident Evil.
Resident Evil.
The one in the mansion with the dogs. That game was terrifying back then. And it still might be terrifying today. I don't know. I looked at the footage and it doesn't look too scary anymore. So, but anyway, back then it was scary. In fact, I remember my grandmother, I love her so much. She would tell me to take it off the TV because she thought it was too demonic, too satanic, and she didn't want that in her household. So we used to like sneak and try to hook it up to the TV. That's back when you had to like screw in the thing in the back of the TV. I don't remember, coaxial, I think it's called. We'll try to sneak and like hook it up to the TV and just play it for a few hours and she'll catch us. She'll catch us. So that was actually more horrific than the game itself. So she'll catch us and say, "Take that off of the TV, take it off of the TV, no." So Resident Evil had a special place in my childhood. I would never forget the giant snake and all of the antics that went on with Resident Evil, the original. So I then went on to play all of the other games in the series, and I've completed most of them except for 6. I didn't really like 6 that much, but the rest of them I did, including Village. But for some reason, I keep playing Resident Evil very late. So I guess I'm not a die-hard Resident Evil fan, but I'm a fan nonetheless. So I'm just gonna jump into my notes and talk about the most fascinating visual things that I loved while playing this experience. I completed the game a few days ago, I think it was 2 days ago, before starting Baldur's Gate. Ooh. So it's still very fresh in my head cup. So thing number 1. The first thing I found absolutely gorgeous was actually in the very beginning of the game. There is a storybook called The Village of Shadows, and it's this gorgeous book that reminds me of old school pop-up books that looks to be made of paper and clay. The animation team did such a fantastic job creating this intro to the actual game. It set the tone of what's to come, the madness. It's a nice little preview of anxiety. The reason why I like these visuals in particular, it's because it reminds me so much of Little Nightmares. My daughters and I play Little Nightmares, and this really has that same vibe within it, which makes me wonder if Capcom could perhaps make a game within the Village of Shadows book. Kind of like Little Nightmares, maybe with more survival elements. That would be really, really nice. So the Village of Shadows book, it's just a great book. And I really like the fact that they didn't just use it in the beginning of the game, but there's another section that utilizes the same storybook as well. I'm not gonna get too much into it. So not only is this intro book amazing, but art within the game is actually fascinating as well. Throughout the game, you're gonna see like portraits, you're gonna see laboratory sketches, and just a lot of art throughout the game. And one of the things that I like that Resident Evil Village does, that a lot of games forget to put in their game, is actually the concept art from the previous game and the current game. I think that is such a boon to put in your game so we can see the conceptualizing of the entire game. It's getting too damn hot. Not selling anything anymore. So the second thing that I absolutely loved about Resident Evil Village, and this is such a major thing, and I noticed this in Resident Evil 7, the visuals of rust and decay. Both of these things go hand in hand to create some of the most realistic, old, decrepit visuals that I think I've seen in any game. The game is simply stunning, and one of the things that it does really well is it presents itself as an aged setting. So everything looks like it's been there for decades, untouched, just rusting and withering away. Seeing organic anything in Resident Evil Village actually made my stomach kind of churn a little bit. So as I mentioned previously, I'm used to seeing big ass blocky polygons in my horror games. Not seeing things that look photorealistic on the floor, in the sink, all around. In fact, now that I think about it, it was a similar thing in Resident Evil 7, seeing rotten food and seeing dirty dishes and just disgusting piles of filth. It just looks so realistic, and it works so well in the context of creating a horror game. And the main thing that I want out of my Resident Evil experience is to feel panicked and disgusted. And every aspect of this game, in terms of the visuals and the setting, delivered on those sensibilities. There's just something that is just skin crawling about, slowly taking in these environments. And it's not just the environments, it's everything. The enemies look really disgusting. They look really gross. You literally have these like hairy hobo things, and I know they're supposed to be lichens, but they look like hairy hobos to me. They come out of nowhere. They got no top lip, no bottom lip. They're glowing eyes, and they just look like they stink. They look like they're growing mold, which is brilliant in my opinion, given what the story is about. From the setting to the enemies, the game just makes your skin crawl in a good way. And I can't mention the rust and the decay without mentioning what aspect is actually making that effect work like a charm. The lighting. The lighting in Resident Evil Village is perfection. Walking through a hallway, whether it be outside, whether it be inside, underground, it feels realistic, and it's due to the lighting. The lighting engine, whatever they used in this game, it works, and it works so well. There are times where I'm walking through a corridor and I'm thinking, if Capcom makes something grab me, I am going to have a heart attack this night. And that's exactly what I want from my Resident Evil. So the environments and the enemies and just the organic disgust in the game is one thing. But creating characters that are petrifying is another. So I remember seeing the marketing material for Resident Evil Village and seeing Lady D, right? And I thought Lady D was supposed to be kind of like Weapon X, right? You know, the guy with the face, yeah. Not quite, right? So unlike the previous games, there's something about the villains in Resident Evil that really just that scare me in a different kind of way. Instead of a hulking monster that's just chasing you down and busting down walls, in Village it's more like you're facing a group of sinister entities that you can't quite wrap your head around what exactly they are. And they explain it in the story. But Lady D and the rest of the cast in the game, I thought looked very interesting. they looked grotesque, and they looked creepy. And I loved confronting each and every one of them. In fact, I will go as far as to say within this game, Resident Evil Village, I really like the way people look in general. There's something about the way characters look in Resident Evil that make them seem very, very believable. And not only in the actual main game, but in the DLC as well. I actually finished the DLC and I like aspects of the DLC actually better than the main game. I feel like this game is very good at making people look like people, especially doing things that look really painful to said people. And it works. It works. I felt a bit uneasy seeing some of the things that happened in Resident Evil. And I think that's a really good job in terms of its visuals. So I can't finish talking about the people in Resident Evil without mentioning my absolutely favorite character. That is the great Duke.
Oh, we meet again, Duke.
Now, while you're walking through Resident Evil and being scared shitless, for me, it was so comforting to see this big jolly fella that is working so hard to provide me with the support he can muster up. Duke is something else, and I really like the look of Duke. I think he looks like someone who you can trust, but at the same time, someone you shouldn't trust, because he's always in a mood that is in sharp contrast to what the hell is going on in the actual game. I really liked how safe I felt hearing his voice. And I know that seems weird, right? But at the same time, I don't know if I was supposed to trust this guy or not, right? And I really like what happens in the DLC. I just think the visuals in this game are done so well. I love the look of pretty much every boss. I love the ending. It was just a great ride. So a couple of honorable mentions that I really liked about this game. I like the feel of the weapons. I think the weapons felt impactful. I was able to feel very comfortable lining up shots and doing what I needed to do to survive. There's something about playing the game in first-person mode that makes it far scarier than third-person mode. When the game first came out, they didn't have the third-person option, but now they do. I tried it out. I do like the third-person option, but I just feel like that first-person, it's just something about not being able to see behind you or that great to the side that makes it so horrific to the point where you're kind of doing this action, and it's actually really scary. So the way I played Resident Evil was downstairs in the cold ass basement, no lights on, no one else around, not even Obi, not my dog, nothing. And I feel like that's the best way to play Resident Evil. If you're gonna play this game, you have to be immersed in this world, because not only are the visuals great, the sound design is great, and I just like the gameplay overall. I think it's a fantastic game. In fact, I would go as far as to say Resident Evil Village is probably my favorite Resident Evil next to Resident Evil 4. So honestly, that's why I haven't played the remake of Resident Evil 4, because I wanted to play Village first. So should you pick up Resident Evil Village? Especially because right now it's dirt cheap. I think I got the whole experience for like $20 or something, and that includes the DLC. I think it's worth it. The DLC in particular, I really like the DLC because it really messes with you psychologically. And I think they do things in that game that I want to see in future games, or at least in some kind of horror spin-off game, because the way that game puts you in psychological torture is amazing. It's something. I had to see color after playing this game because, man, it can be drab at times. It could be very heart-wrenching at times to see what's going on. And I feel like the realism is getting to a point now where it's like, yeah, I'm immersed, and that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. So if you like this video, you can also check out my other videos on my channel. I just play whatever game I feel is next up in my backlog and talk about the visuals. For those of you who have no idea who I am, my name is Jabalani Ori, artist extraordinaire, and I love to talk about the visuals in games. If you would like to see my artwork, you can head over to my website, jahbu.com. Until next time, my wonderful people, one love. Stay scared. Peace.